Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have someone special with us today. His name is Erik Wahl. He's a best-selling artist, author, and speaker. Most precisely, his company is called The Art of Vision. He's a philanthropist and a graffiti artist there. Quite the interesting guy and character. This podcast is brought to you by podpire.com. If you want to start and scale your podcast, go to podpire.com. Erik, I'm glad to have you on. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays?
Sure thing, Charles. Thanks for the opportunity to share. So I am a graffiti artist by brand. I am a performance artist by trade. So I work in all kinds of mediums, paint, oil and acrylic, sculpture, photography, writing, poetry, directing films, acting in films. And those skills that access those avenues of creativity are the same channels by which we're able to access them in our business life as an entrepreneur, to differentiate from the competition, to be able to innovate, to remain a step ahead of the competition, to be able to navigate ambiguity or master complexity. So my work, even though I'm a performance artist, I actually paint live on stage during my performance. Maybe I should just quickly, what I do is I travel around the world talking to corporations about how to innovate, how to differentiate. And so I'm usually coming into these large national conferences, sale conferences, leadership meetings, to come and shake the room up, to help them to expand their consciousness, to be able to think differently, to kind of elevate the whole conference experience. That it's a keynote that has a breath of fresh air, kind of a wow or aha moment for the audience to take a step back from the daily grind, from corporate speak, and to be able to access that parasympathetic nervous system where we dream, where we create, where we humanize our brand, where we have our emotions. And so I have the opportunity to either kick off or close large conferences on a high note with this message and with this entertainment. And so I'm an artist slash performance artist slash what your listeners might better know me as is a keynote speaker or a professional speaker, a motivational speaker, even though I'm not a big fan of the word motivational speaker. It's not a rah-rah. It's not a go get 'em kids. This is steeped in deep mental flexibility, the science of how we think, the science of performance, the science of how our mind has been conditioned to operate in a very small percentage of what we actually have access to. So when I have 45 to 60 minutes to speak to an organization, I'm creating that experience for them that opens up their mind, and they're able to see their own jobs as from a little different perspective. And that is, in a nutshell, what I get to do for a living. In my free time, I'm always painting, I'm always writing, I'm always keeping my skills sharp, because that's what I love to do. If I could do anything with my free time, it would be the arts. And I really am grateful for the opportunity to get to do this for a living.
Sounds like a great life, man. When was
Yeah,
your first graffiti and when did you discover your first love for art?
sure. That started right around 2000, 2001, where I actually had what you would almost call an early midlife crisis, where I lost everything. I'd gone to school to become a suit, to get a degree, to make lots of money, so that I could retire early. And that is not what happened. Through my experience, I worked hard. I worked the grind, 7 to 7, 7 days a week if need be. And I still, after the dot-com bomb, ended up losing everything, including my own sense of perspective and direction. I realized how much of my identity was couched in what I did for work, or how much money I had. Not that I would tell people how much that I had, but I was stacking up money on the side in my bank account so that I could kind of measure my effectiveness as a successful person. So at 30 years old, when my entire notebook of how I valued myself in my bank records and numbers was gone, I went to search for meaning in other spaces of life. What was supposed to be the American dream was more accurately the American nightmare for me. But then also the rebirth to find something new. And so in my search of my going for something that was almost the opposite of what my business or mathematical or economics degrees had been, I started leaning into the arts, and I became just absolutely fascinated with the masters, how they thought, why they thought, how they created, where they competed, how they got commissions. And so this personhood inside the arts became fascinating to me. And I used to, at that point, spend more time with artists and how they think, how they thought. And I began to paint. I began to write. And I really do feel strongly that writing is to thinking as painting is to seeing. And I really wasn't doing any of these things up until I was 30 and starting to journal and write and create and capture thought. And so that was unique for me, but exciting to participate in. And then as I was doing that, spending time around artists, I learned to see, or really I learned to kind of re-see, because all what I thought were my eyes and taking in subjects, lights, darks, had been tricked somewhat along the way. So as I was able to see more deeply, I was able to paint more. I had greater access to my painting skills and painting eye. And it's not unlike a learned or disciplined skill like reading or writing or arithmetic. But oftentimes our artistic skills stop at around age 5. And interestingly, that's when we go to school. That's when we notice that our drawing of a cat doesn't look like Peggy's drawing of a cat. And we kind of back off and say, well, I'm not that artistic. I don't have a creative bone in my body. And so that's really where mine was found from, is kind of disconnecting from this corporate identity, refinding myself in my own almost childlike whimsy in the fun it was to paint and play. And at that point, realized that their artists also had a chink in their armor. So it wasn't about being a successful entrepreneur, and it wasn't about being just simply a successful artist, because most artists don't understand marketing or branding or discipline or practice, rehearsal. And so they expect the world to kind of come to them because they created something so cool. And that's just not the way that it works. You've got to create your art, your brand, and then you need to hustle. Then you need to market it. Then you need to build out and build word of mouth and have a branded presence online. And that's really where the keynote speaking came from, as I wrote a couple of books. The first one was titled Unthink, kind of unleashing our creative potential, where I wrote it for entrepreneurs. I used their language, but I accessed how to think through almost whimsy and creativity and imagination, and put the two together to unlock our adult human mind to create new ideas. So
That's
that
just
was
fantastic.
yeah.
Quite inspired because I'm looking at your Insta at the same time and I'm seeing all your paintings there. What do you have to say about one, the therapeutic aspect of art and how one can have his or her emotions flow through their art?
It's a beautiful way to put it. Art is therapeutic for that very reason, and the purpose of art is really not to produce a finished product, but rather the purpose of art is to produce thinking, and not just thinking, to produce dynamic thinking, game-changing thinking, kind of thinking that's going to wake up our mind or shake up our brain cells to be able to awaken intellectual curiosity. So the process of art is how we access emotion. It's how we access our higher self, our expanded consciousness, but it's actually not the finished product that we are revealing. If it's a great finished product, great, you can share it with other people. But it's a discipline, like working out is a discipline to get our bodies stronger. We can't just go and run a marathon. We need to train for many, many months in advance to condition our bodies to meet that resistance. So that's what I do, is I train myself, I train others in creativity, in innovation, how to seek out resistance, how to seek discomfort, and then how to move through it to actually find the beauty that sits on the other side. And so that's where I use art as a metaphor to access that part of our brain to be able to open up to new ideas. And it's just one of the really nice things about art, and it comes in a lot of different forms. It comes in acting, it comes in cooking, it comes in dance. So whether someone can paint or not, photorealistically, like a very accomplished artist, is not the question. It's, do you enjoy the process of getting there? And through that process is where we get in touch with ourselves again. We recenter, we disconnect from noise and find, I think, even purpose again. So yeah, the purpose of art is to produce thinking, not a finished product.
Love it. Your ideas process, how do you decide if you're gonna paint Michael Jordan on your Air Jordans, or if you're gonna paint a Mona Lisa, a 10,000 square foot Mona Lisa in an LA desert?
Yeah, so those were a couple of interesting ones. You talk about Jordan. When I'm performing, I wear AF1s or Air Force One tennis shoe. But on it, I create a unique shoe for every show that I'm doing. So if I'm performing for Wells Fargo, I have, kind of a branded Wells Fargo shoe that is just fun. It's an area for me. I don't talk about it. I think it's cool, and you can't put a price on cool. So anyone that notices my shoes says, wow, cool, one up. As far as the icons that I will paint live, it is almost always determined by the audience. Are the audience sales professionals? Are they executives? Are they nurses? And so I will create a painting done in 3 minutes, choreographed to music and images in those 3 minutes. And it's usually based on what the audience reaction I'm looking to get, if it's more energetic with U2 or the Rolling Stones, if it's more passive with John Lennon, if it's an active athlete, if we're talking about leadership, possibly, here in the US, Abraham Lincoln or Steve Jobs. If we're talking about innovation or creativity, it would be Albert Einstein. So I play with those different ideas and then shape those for the customization of the presentations that I do. The Mona Lisa that I did, it was a 10,000 foot 10,000 square foot Mona Lisa done up in the desert, where we had backhoes and helicopters and earth movers. And so I shaped a Mona Lisa out of the earth, out of rock, out of clay, out of grass. And that was a really fun project. We ended up filming the entire thing, and I created a video series about it that we actually produced and released in schools around the country.
That's quite fascinating. And when you're done with a painting, it is my understanding that you don't always sell it. Sometimes you give the proceedings to charity. So tell us about the philanthropy aspect of your work and why it's important to you.
Sure. I stopped selling all of my artwork many years ago. I didn't, at that point, when I was a young artist coming up, I didn't like the idea of commoditizing my art or putting a price tag on it, or this painting is worth X, this painting is worth Y. For me, the excitement was in the presentations that I got to do. So I would perform live, and I would create a painting in 3 minutes. I'd do maybe 2 to 3 paintings for each audience. And then I leave them there for the audience. So I gift them back. It's just kind of a thank you for letting me perform. And then they usually will auction off those pieces for charity. And they're able to make embarrassingly high amounts of money for charitable causes, because you can't put a price on cool. And when someone experiences something from the audience, they connect with it. They even see themselves as part of it. They even see members of their family that they wanted to share this experience with. And so the paintings are their own value proposition that continue going up over the course of my presentation. And so the audience all kind of wants that painting as a metaphor for what they experienced here in the session. And so then they auction them off, and I don't have anything to do. I've already left town by that point. And I don't look back and say, how much did you get for them? It's really not important for me. I know that they're going to raise good money for great causes. And my ego is not attached to, did it sell for $1 or did it sell for $25,000? I'm just grateful that that energy, the emotion, the art, the concept, the ideas have been memorialized inside of a piece of artwork, and that people will exchange their dollars, their bank account, in exchange for that piece, where all of that money goes to charity. And that's just something I'm really proud of. Not because I don't sell my paintings. I make enough for a living through my keynote speeches, and I'm able to just put the art in on top of that as a kind of cherry on top that sometimes turns into a real sweet cherry that audience are able to use and to generate income for foundations. So
Pink has bought your painting, a bunch of celebrities. You hang out with Gary Vee. What have you learned from the greats out there?
the humanization of branding, how they connect with audiences, who they are on stage, and then who they are off stage. And Gary is just a master of humanizing his brand, connecting with hungry crowds who are searching for how to launch their business, how to be an entrepreneur, how to break through all the noise to be able to set themselves apart, how to create and differentiate. Through someone like Pink, the production that she uses on stage, it's similar to the production that I use. I use multiple cameras. I have show producers, I have sound engineers, I have lighting professionals who are all amplifying my show to scale. It's giving this corporate audience a presentation that they've never seen before, and that they really won't ever be able to see again, because it is expensive to create all of the orchestration of what goes on in Pink's presentations, her concerts for her fans, and in turn my presentations that I do for corporate audiences. They're very difficult to duplicate because I'm talking about their business, their language at a fairly high level. Talking about their competitors, talking about the current economic landscape, talking about what people have done in the past in similar positions, and relating it to what they can do to elevate their value proposition, how sales professionals can differentiate. But I'm doing it all through a multimedia experience with sound, lights, video, painting, my presentation, all kind of put together. So half rock star, half Gary Vee, half Simon Sinek, half there's lots of different people who are I think portions of what I do, but I've really have worked hard to create a solo show that I really love to have the opportunity to be able to perform.
I need to attend one of those. Erik, where can people find out more about you?
My socials is where I put most of my up and coming art shows. What I've been doing is the most recent. That's at Erik Wahl, and then my website, which is where we get booked for all of our corporate gigs, and my team handles everything. That's on theartofvision.com.